have a mint print news article that I'll get to in a second. Before that, though, I want to share what Peter Maranchi said about the untimely death of Ruth Bader Ginsburg. God damn it, now I'm going to have to put up with everybody screeching and whining about how Ruth Bader Ginsburg was the second coming of Christ rather than the mediocre corporate justice that she actually was. The Democrats don't actually give a shit about letting Trump and the oligarchy stack the judiciary, so why should we? The entire American government needs to be overthrown anyway if we want to survive. That includes the Supreme Court, just in case anyone didn't realize it. This is me talking. It also includes all the federal judges that have been appointed over the last 40 years. I'm trying to think if people appointed 40 years ago would still be there, but perhaps. So Peter's conclusion is, don't get your panties in a bunch. The fight remains the same. Fuck the election. Revolution 2020. So if, like a lot of us, you're coming around to a revolutionary state of mind, you need to know what we'll be fighting if Joe Biden wins and then gets replaced by Kamala right after that. And I haven't said this before, but if Kamala steps in right after Joe is anointed by the oligarchs, what we'll get is what the deep state has been planning all along. Trump, despite his orneriness, wasn't able to really slow down what the deep state had going when he got there. They've carried out the same wars that they were carrying out before. If you remember, Vladimir Putin made that same point about Barack Obama. Putin noted that before the election, Barack Obama truly wanted to shut down the Guantanamo Bay naval base. But then Putin noticed all the guys in dark suits that surrounded Obama all the time and seemed to be explaining to him what needed to happen. And so his firm resolve to shut down Guantanamo Bay became moot. Trump recently lamented how hawkish the insiders are who don't want to bring troops home from Syria. What I assume about a Joe Biden presidency is that the deep state would have its way with him very easily, and just as easily with Kamala Harris. So we have no good choices, duh. We have an ornery Trump versus an in the pocket of the deep state Biden-Harris ticket. We're fucked either way. So if you're in a fighting mood, let's figure out what we'll be fighting. Austerity at home and imperialism abroad, what a Joe Biden win would mean for America. By Roger D. Harris. If past performances is any indicator of future outcomes, a brief look at past Democratic presidencies offers insights into what a Biden win could mean for America and the world. As is patently obvious, the U.S. is in trouble. Climate-driven heat waves and fires grip the nation. An already faltering economy with deep contradictions can only tank given the shock of a pandemic that has necessitated varying degrees of sequestering. In fact, the downturn had already started before COVID-19 hit. An already largely privatized healthcare system run for profit and a social ethic that rejects socialized public health measures could only have proven inadequate. Added to this mix, a historically racist nation was ripe for the righteous protests against overt injustices. These conditions predated Trump's presidency and predetermined the current calamity. The incumbent Trump card. Trump is screwing up royally, but the root causes were unavoidable. Rather than owning up to the inherent nature of capitalism, which puts profits before people as its operating principle, elite opinion needs to point a finger at an offending scapegoat. Someone must take a fall, and the designated chump is Trump. Witness Republican establishment figures defecting to the Biden camp. Trump, under normal circumstances, would have a formidable advantage as the incumbent president. Of the 13 U.S. presidents since 1933, all ran for re-election with the exception of JFK, who tragically did not have that choice. All but 3 won. These exceptions prove the rule that bad economic times doom the incumbent. Ford and Bush the Elder were defeated by recessions, and Carter by stagflation. Today's circumstances are not normal. Trump's incumbency may be a fatal flaw, with conditions worse in many respects than they were during the Great Depression. Added to that, a collapsing economy and a nation aflame with racial justice protests, Trump has not improved his prospects by mishandling the COVID-19 contagion. A U.S. passport was once the most accepted in the world. Now that the US leads the world in total pandemic deaths and ranks a high 11th in deaths by population, only 8 countries in the world are fully open to US tourists: Albania, Belarus, Brazil, Mexico, Serbia, Turkey, Zambia, and that most sought-after destination of North Macedonia, whose national flower is the opium poppy. The delusional fear that Trump will stage a coup to stay in power begs the question of what army and security apparatus would back him. Not the US military, nor the security state agencies, FBI, NSA, CIA, and other spooks. Those institutions of the permanent state are no more in favor of Trump than most of the active US electorate, who will likely give him a boot this fall. Enter the perilous next act. In the midst of the pandemic, when health insurance claims would be expected to be out of control, health insurers have been garnering obscene profits benefiting from the public health emergency. Amongst the super rich, Jeff Bezos of Amazon added $87.1 billion to his net worth since the beginning of the year, and Elon Musk of Tesla accrued another $73.6 billion. Thanks in large part to the habitual intervention by the Federal Reserve for the owners of finance capital, Market Insider predicts 2021 could be a boom year for stocks, while prospects for working people look grim and ever grimmer. Yes, Bernie Sanders was right that the system is rigged for the capitalist class. Would a Democratic victory in November change any of this? Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi, the current highest-ranking Democrat, said it all. We're capitalist, and that's just the way it is. Her net worth is $120 million. Even major liberal Democrats, such as Elizabeth Warren, are doctrinaire capitalists to the bone. When asked to explain herself, the senator said, "I believe in markets and the benefits they can produce for people." True enough, the people who benefit from capitalism are the capitalists. How about Democratic Party progressives like the Squad, you ask? In the graveyard of social movements that is the Democratic Party, they are relegated to diversity window dressing, with AOC getting only 90 seconds of fame at the Democratic National Convention. Nominal independent Bernie Sanders tried an end run for the presidential nomination but ran into the DNC's no progressives rule. And if Biden wins in 2020 and Harris in 2024 and 2028, 2032 would be the first chance for a progressive Democrat to even try to run. This is me talking. I would say that this would create havoc. We will have blood in the streets if we have to wait until 2032. We may not even get to November without blood in the streets. There's already blood in the streets. Making it necessary to wait so long for justice will necessitate a bloody coup. There's no other solution. And we wouldn't be overthrowing Trump. We would be overthrowing the deep state. And we would be overthrowing the owners of the deep state. We have to overthrow the puppets for sure, but we also have to overthrow those who are funding the puppets. Assuming that a bloody coup is inevitable, it doesn't much matter whether you vote for Biden or Trump, but I have to say that if you vote for Biden, according to this article, you're going to be voting for the deep state. You're going to be voting to endorse the very people that we need to overthrow. Trump is the personification of bungling ineptitude. His ability to help or to hinder the deep state is nil. So the sooner we stop focusing on Trump and start focusing on the deep state and the true enemies of the people, the better it will be for all of us. Back to the story. Speaking of the Democratic National Convention, Bernie Sanders praised Uncle Joe for, of all things, his health care policies. Michelle Obama carried chutzpah to new heights, criticizing Trump for immigration practices inherited from her husband. Can't the best speechwriters that money can buy come up with more convincing mendacities? The enduring neoliberal project will continue with a likely change of guard from one party of capital to the other in January, though with a kinder face. We won't have to contend with Prince of Darkness Pence and his buddy anymore. The new feel-good Democratic couple will be spreading the love, and no one is feeling the good more than the capitalist class, rewarding the Democrats with donations of $48 million in the 48 hours after the announcement of Kamala Harris as the vice presidential candidate. Just about every mainstream media article gushed about her amazing qualifications, the foremost being fundraising. In plain English, her biggest asset is she is understood as serving the capitalist class. The record of Democratic presidencies. This is the best part of the article. It may be too soon to exhale with a Biden White House. If past performance is any indicator of future outcomes, a brief look at recently passed Democratic presidencies is advised. Under the watch of new Democrat Bill Clinton, the Glass-Steagall Act was repealed, which was a factor leading to the Great Recession. NAFTA exported U.S. union jobs while destroying small-scale Mexican agriculture. He dismantled Yugoslavia and bombed Iraq, contributing to the now perpetual destabilization of that part of the world. Welfare, as we know it, was abolished and mass incarceration instituted. Clinton was on a roll with Social Security next on the chopping block, only to be stopped by the Monica Lewinsky scandal. So thanks, Monica, for that. While these were pet projects of the Republican wing of the U.S. two-part duopoly, it took a Democrat to foist it on the populace. Notably, no major progressive legislation came out of Clinton's watch. He adroitly felt your pain while inflicting it on the Democrats' captured working class and minority constituencies, much to the pleasure of the class he served. The next Democratic president, Barack Obama, had not even completed a term in the Senate before his meteoric rise to the Oval Office. Obama had the wiring, but part of his remarkable upward mobility came from being groomed and vetted by the ruling class to carry their water. He came out of the Brookings Institute's Hamilton Project, which successfully sought to make the Democrats the favored party of Wall Street. After promising peace, Obama led the U.S. into wars in at least 7 countries. Although no major progressive legislation came out of the Obama presidency, his many handouts to the ruling elites included bailing out the banks with no one prosecuted for wrongdoing. He gifted Obamacare to the insurance industry while killing single payer. He more than doubled fossil fuel production, for which he proudly took credit. The lesson is that it is often more difficult to mount an organized resistance to regressive policies when promoted by Democrats than Republicans. Recall the massive resistance to Bush's war in Iraq that instantly vanished the moment Obama inherited that war and brazenly took Bush's Secretary of Defense, Robert Gates, into his cabinet. Similarly, we have seen Democrats sabotaging Medicare for All, with Biden already pledging to veto it if it came before him. Campaign promises Biden will keep. The only thing preventing Trump from self-destructing come November 3rd is none other than the Democratic Party. Of all the potential candidates that could have walked over Trump, particularly Sanders with universal health care in a time of pandemic, or even Warren with taxing corporations in a time of record profits amidst a recession, they chose the one candidate who could lose. The former senator from MasterCard has already assured Wall Street that their privileged position will be protected on his watch. The warmongers have been assuaged with the promise that the military budget can only go up. The insurance parasites know that government-imposed private health policies are set in stone. The Zionists needn't fret about the U.S. recognizing Palestinian rights or of reversing recognition of Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. And according to Michael Moore, Kamala was hand-groomed by these same DNC insiders. So you can bet that her stance will be no different than Biden's on all of these issues. Worse than the climate deniers, Biden believes in the science of global warming and knows its catastrophic consequences, yet he will do little about it and has already opposed a fracking ban. Fossil fuel subsidies will continue under the Democrats. Note that these dubious promises were made on the campaign trail while trying to attract votes. No, they don't give a shit about votes. They only give a shit about defeating leftists and keeping the working class down where they belong. Enter the Biden Presidency. Pelosi set the stage for a Biden presidency. The first thing the Democrats pushed through after taking back the House in 2018 was the pay-go rule, a fiscally conservative measure virtually guaranteeing that no progressive legislation can be funded. Then in March of this year, the Democrats unanimously and without any debate helped pass the CARES Act, the largest single transfer of wealth from workers to the wealthy in the history of the world. This is me talking. This is a big fucking deal, this pay-go rule, and putting handcuffs on any way for the US economy to actually spend its way out of the austerity and out of the pain and into comfort and not comfort, just solvency for the US workers. And our favorite lefty politicians didn't lift a finger to stop the CARES Act. So if you're waiting for the progressives that are already in there to do anything, or for new progressives to do anything, you can shit can that idea. It's not going to happen. Your favorite lefty politicians, current and future, aren't going to do shit to help the American people. They're too worried about committee appointments and getting in good with Mama Bear. Revolution is the only way to solve this. Back to the story. Democrats with the Obama-Biden administration and since have leapfrogged Republicans to the right on foreign policy issues in important respects regarding Afghanistan, North Korea, Russia, Syria, Venezuela, etc. Democrats even oppose drawing down U.S. troops abroad, because that would slow down their support from the donors who support the military-industrial complex. If anything, the Democrats are even more imperialistic than the Republicans. Back to the story. Trump has been all over the map, ineptly and inconsistently pursuing détente with Putin and while threatening Xi Jinping. With the Democratic administration, we can be assured of a more consistent, skillful, and lethal U.S. imperialism pursuing full-spectrum dominance over the rest of the world. Follow Caitlin Johnstone if you want to know more about that. Those who complain about Trump's bungling should understand that the Biden alternative will be a more deadly and efficient rule of capital. We should be careful about what we wish for.